Dear students, let us continue the discussion of process scheduling, chapter number 5. So this is my second lecture. So in my previous lecture, we saw the basics of process. So how exactly the CPU scheduling takes place, the components of CPU for scheduling, that is CPU scheduling, the scheduler and the dispatcher. After that, we discussed the different CPU scheduling algorithms. Okay. So next we'll discuss the multiprocessor scheduling. So till now, whatever the discussion we had in my previous lecture, that is CPU scheduling. So we considered only one CPU, but we know that whatever the modern computer systems we have, so these are multiprocessor systems. Okay, means we have the number of processes. So if you have the multiple CPUs, then the CPU scheduling task will become little bit complex. Okay, so that's why to understand this, again you have to consider the different varieties of the processors, like we have the homogeneous processors within a multiprocessor. Okay, so the processing, again whatever the processing that is carried out by the processor, that itself is again divided into these two categories, that is asymmetric multiprocessing and symmetric multiprocessing. In short, it is SMP. So what is asymmetric multiprocessing? So asymmetric multiprocessing, here only one processor accesses the system data structures, alleviating the need for the data sharing. So here what happens, the asymmetric multiprocessing, so we know that we have the number of processors, that is CPUs. So out of those processors, only one processor will be designated as a master and other will act as a slave processors. Okay, so here we have the master slave concept. Means slave means they will be doing their own task, whatever the task that this system want to perform. So those things will be carried out by those particular processes. They will not bother about any other things. But whatever the master processor we have, so only that master processor will be allowed to access the system data structures, alleviating the need for data sharing. Means whatever the data sharing activity is carried out by the system, so whatever the controlling and monitoring functions are there, so those will be carried out by that processor. Okay, so this is nothing but the asymmetric multiprocessing. So next is the symmetric multiprocessing. This is an opposite for this. Means here the symmetric means, as the name itself indicate, each processor is self-scheduling all processes in common ready queue, or each has its own private queue of ready processes. So that's what here we don't have any discrimination among the processors as the master and the other type. Okay, here in symmetric multiprocessing, every processor will be treated with the equal gauge. Each processor itself is having the self-scheduling concept, and that is the method. So along with that, so whatever the processes that are there in the common ready queue, all the processors can access those processes that are there in the common ready queue. Means here there are two options. The first option is whatever the ready queue is there with respect to the system, so that itself is considered as a common ready queue, and that ready queue itself is shared among all the different processors. So the processors, whenever they are free, so they will be taking a process from the ready queue for the execution. This is first way. In the second way, what happens is, again in turn every process will have its own private queue for the ready processes. Okay, this is the second one. Means as the name itself indicates, every process will have its own private means only that processor can access the processes that are there in that ready queue, unlike the common ready queue. Okay, so these two ways of implementation exists when we have the symmetric multiprocessing system. Okay, so here there is one more very important term with respect to multiprocessor system scheduling, is the processor affinity. Okay, so what is this processor affinity? So this is nothing but a cache memory problem. So process has affinity for a processor on which it is currently running. So here what happens is, we know that whenever a process is running on the processor, so for one or the other reason, so you may want to change the processor of that process. Means, in other words, during the execution, a process may want to change its execution from one processor to another process, or your system may want to transfer a process from one processor to the another process. Okay, but usually this is not possible, because whenever a process is to be transferred from one processor to the another processor, so we know that every process is having the associated data structure, that is PCB, process control block. So in that process control block, whatever the information of that process is there, so all will be stored in that. So already I think in my one of my previous lecture we have discussed this. So when you want to move a process from one processor to another processor, first you have to save the present status of that processor. Okay. So that's what here when you want to move a process from one processor to another processor, that currently executing processes status is to be stored on that PCB. Okay, so again when you move that process to the another processor, on that processor the status of this should be reloaded, provided that processor is free. Okay, so that's why usually the system is going to avoid this particular facility. Okay, so this is called as affinity. Okay, so what is this affinity? Affinity is not, it's like affection. So here processor affinity means this is the affinity of a processor towards that process. Means here processor will not be leaving that process to move from itself to the other processor. So this is called as the processor affinity. Okay, so whatever the process that is executing on the processor will not be leaving the executing process to move from itself to the other processor. Okay, so again here there are two kinds of the affinity. So one is soft affinity, another one is hard affinity. In soft affinity what happens? So that's what in soft affinity, again whenever a processor want to whenever a process want to move from one processor to another processor, so usually this is not allowed. So this is soft affinity. Hard affinity is what? So here that itself the corresponding thing will be prevented. Okay, so so that's what here, although we saw that the processor affinity means the process may change the processor from one processor to another process, although it is not possible, but it may happen. So there is no guarantee that this will happen in the processor affinity. So that's why we have soft affinity and hard affinity. In soft affinity, a process is allowed to change its processor from one processor to another processor, whereas in hard affinity, like especially in Linux system, this hard affinity exists. So here on Linux system it provides a system call which will facilitate the process to specify that it don't want to change its corresponding processor. So this is about the multiple processor scheduling. So here in this this figure clearly it is given. So we have the two processors here. So this is first processor, this is second processor. The CPU, it is having memory, so the fast access, CPU memory fast access. But let us consider a process is running on this CPU, but here it is facing some problem. Okay, or in other words, let us consider the executing process CPU is want to access the memory block, but it is not able to access in the required speed. So that's why here it may continue to do that with respect to the memory, with respect to the other CPU. So this is popularly called as the NUMA and the CPU scheduling. So next we have the load balancing. So for the load balancing we have the two general approaches. First one is push migration and second one is pull migration. So in push migration what happens, a specific task periodically checks the load on each processor, and if it finds an imbalance, evenly distributes the load by moving processes from overloaded to the idle or less busy. So this is what the first method of load balancing. As the name itself indicates, push migration. Push migration means the processes will be pushed from the overloaded processor to the less loaded processor. Okay, means here we know that when we have the number of processors, if a particular processor is having so many processes that are executing, and if it is overloaded, so here by using this push migration, your system is going to, means here one particular specific task will be there, so it will be continuously checking the particular load, and when it finds that a processor is overloaded, so those processes or some of the processes from that overloaded processor will be moved to the less loaded processor. Okay, so this is nothing but a push migration. So another approach is pull migration. Pull migration means here the processor which is idle or a processor which is with less load will be pulling the processes from the other process where the number of processors are there. Okay, so this is about the push migration and pull migration. In push migration, the processes will be pushed from one processor to the another processor, whereas in pull migration, a processor which is idle or which is having less load will be pulling the processes from the other processor where the number of processors is more. Okay, so this is about load balancing. So next we have thread scheduling. Okay, so already in my previous discussion we have discussed the distinction between the user level and the kernel level threads. Okay, so the user level thread means the thread will be created and it will be running at the user space, and kernel level thread means here the thread will be created and it will be running in the kernel mode. Okay, and here we also saw that whenever a thread that is running in the user mode, if it want to execute a particular system call, so temporarily that should be moved to the kernel space. So we have already in detail we have discussed all these things in my previous lecture. So here we observe that the two models, that is many to one and many to many models. So the thread library schedules user level threads to run in LWP. So we have something called a lightweight process there. So using this lightweight process, this thread library will schedule the user level threads to run, okay, on the lightweight processes. So this is known as the process contention scope. Okay, so process contention scope. Okay, so this is called as process contention scope. So we have one more thing, that is a kernel thread scheduled onto available CPU is system contention scope. It is in short called as SCS. It's a computation among all threads in the system. So that's what here in the process contention scope, what happens. So in many to one and many to many models, the thread library is scheduling a user level thread to run on the LWP. Okay, so a user level thread will run on LWP. This is called as process contention scope. Okay, similarly at the kernel level, a kernel thread will be scheduled onto the available CPU. This is called as system contention scope, that is SCS. Okay, so in short, you just remember process contention scope is for the user thread, okay, to be allocated by the thread library, and the system contention scope is for the kernel thread to be scheduled on the available CPU. So next we have pthread scheduling. So again, this pthread library is going to provide the set of APIs to support both process contention scope and the system contention scope. Okay, so here the set of APIs are provided by the pthread library. So these APIs allows specifying either PCS or SCS during the thread creation. So the two constants are used here. So pthread underscore scope underscore process. So if you use this, it schedules the threads using the PCS scheduling. If you use pthread underscore scope underscore system, so it schedules the threads using the SCS scheduling. Okay, so in the previous discussion we saw PCS is for the user threads and SCS is for the kernel threads. So if you are dealing with user threads, you have to use this one, that is pthread underscore scope underscore process. If you are dealing with the kernel threads, you have to use pthread underscore scope underscore system. Okay, so next we'll see on simple implementation of the pthread scheduling API. So no need to go in detail here. So we'll just discuss how exactly they have implemented this one. So we include these two header files first, that is hash include pthread.h and hash include studio.h. After that we define one constant to indicate the number of threads. We restrict the value of that to 5. After that we have the main function with the command line arguments, argument C and star argument V. We declare two local variables I and scope. After that we create an array that is pthread underscore t of tid of actually it should be num underscore threads, so this underscore is missing. Okay, this is to store the thread ID. Okay, so all the threads IDs will be stored in this array. So after that we declare one variable to store the attribute of the thread, that is pthread underscore attribute underscore t, that is attr attribute. So now first we have to get the default attributes. So to get the default attributes, so we call the function that is init. Okay, so init by passing the variable ampersand attr. Okay, the return type is pthread underscore attr. So when this is executed, it is going to give you the default attributes that are associated with the executing thread, and these will be stored in the attr variable. Okay, so after this we have to set the scheduling algorithm to process or system. Okay, so again you have to set whether you want to use the process or the system, that is PCS or SCS. So for that we call a set scope method here. So the set scope method is called by passing these two arguments. The first one is the attributes that you have fetched from the thread, and second one is pthread underscore scope underscore system, means I want to use PCS here. Okay, no, sorry, SCS here. So okay, it's a kernel level thread. The return type is pthread underscore attribute. So after that you have to set the scheduling policy. Okay, either the FIFO or RT or other. So we choose other here. So here for that it is pthread underscore attribute, the return type. The function we call is set policy. Okay, so the set policy function is used to set the scheduling policy. So with respect to the attributes that are fetched, you are specifying that the other scheduling policy is to be set for that thread. So after that now you have to create the threads. So how many threads you want to create? So that value is stored in the constant num underscore threads, that is initialized to 5. So we use for loop here. So for I equal to 0, I less than num underscore threads I plus plus. Okay, we call the function create to create the thread. Okay, so create, it takes the 4 arguments. The first one is tid of I, so it indicates the ID, thread ID. Second one is the attributes, third one is the runner, and the fourth one is the null. So return type is pthread. So after this actually this not at that time, I think this is pthread underscore create. Okay, because we are calling this particular function here, so the function name is pthread underscore create. So pthread underscore create is going to create a thread for you. Okay, similarly now we have to, after creating the number of threads, now you have to join on each thread. So to join on each thread, again we have a function that is pthread underscore join. So here also the underscore is missing here and here. Okay, so now join on each thread. So we use a for loop here once again. So for I equal to 0, I less than num underscore threads I plus plus, we call this method that is pthread underscore join by passing these 2 arguments. So the first argument we pass is a thread ID by taking an ID from the array that is tid of I, and the second argument is null. Okay, so here with this we complete we finish the main method. So after that we have to implement the runner method here. So here the runner method, the each thread will begin control in this function only. So here the runner, it is going to return a null pointer. So it takes an argument a param. So here we are going to just display a message as I am a thread. Okay, and we call the method that is pthread underscore exit of 0. So here also the underscore is missing. So in this way the pthread scheduling API can be implemented. Okay, so with this we completed the 5th chapter Thank you.